Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see in the picture today, let's start the story of the second part of a story where Issei had both Ddraig's and Vritra's sacred gears. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more informations and support the amazing author Helix Asmodeus for writing this story. Now let's get into part 2. Issei and Reuvel were teleported to a makeshift arena. Both fighters stood on opposite sides of the stadium looking at each other with the battle-hungry eyes. In the audience were many high-ranking people of the Devil faction. Riaz was watching by Sergiches and Grafia. On the other side there was Azure Phoenix and Azure Phoenix. Riza had no doubt that his older brother and idol would win the fight against a low-class servant. Reuvel was watching with an interested look on her eyes. This Issei Hayate gave Reuvel a feeling she could not describe, but for now she set those feelings to the side and watched the fight. Ria's peerage members were watching with Sona Citri and Tsubaki Shinra on a television screen together with other high-class devils. There was also other individual with them. He had black hair, violet eyes and very good physique. He watches the fight with great interest. Arena. In the arena, Reuvel and Issei stared at each other, waiting for the match to begin. Sergich's voice was heard. Ladies and gentlemen, right now you are about to witness the battle between Reuvel Phoenix and Issei Hayate, the Red Dragon Emperor and Pawn of Rios Gremry. Let this battle commence. After Sergich's little speech, both fighters unfolded their wings. Out of Reuvel came 2 orange wings of fire looking very majestic. Out of Issei came 2 dragon wings. They were black from outside and dark red in the inside. Out of Issei came 2 horns that were black and a black tail with a red tip. Issei did not want it to reveal his tentacles for now. Both fighters launched at each other with blinding speed. Almost all high-ranking devils only saw red, black, and orange blurs. Issei and Reuvel traded punches and kicks with each other. Both fighters blocked their opponent's attack. This lasted for a good minute until both fighters realized that this is going nowhere. Both landed a few masters from each other. Most of their clothes were torn off. Some females were blushing at the powerful fighter's physique. Issei decided to not waste time and yelled, "Crimson Curse Field." Moments later, the arena was surrounded in a crimson and black-colored flame. Reuvel noticed that his wings were slowly losing their flames. He knew he couldn't stay in this field for long and need to do something quickly. He gathered his phoenix fire around his body. Moments later he dashed at Issei, who was standing still waiting for Reuvel to strike. He dashed at Issei with his body covered in orange fire. Issei smirked and quickly did the same. He covered himself with black and red fire. Reuvel punched Issei with his fist covered in orange flames, resulting in explosion. When the explosion was cleared, they saw a giant crater with Reuvel and Issei both in it on the floor. While Issei protected himself, he didn't protect himself from the explosion. Both Issei and Reuvel started to stand up. Both of their bodies had bruises and scratch marks. They looked at each other and smirked. They were enjoying the fight. Both fighters charged at each other again with blinding speed. The crowd were in awe. Reuvel was considered the strongest phoenix to be ever born, and to see that he had a hard time against a low-class servant. Observatory room. Very interesting, your servant Riaz fight on par with Reuvel, and he hasn't used his sacred ones. Noted Sergiches, making the people present widen their eyes. He was right, Issei is the Red Dragon Emperor, but he hasn't used his sacred wands, meaning his base strength is in the ultimate level. Yes, your pawn is immensely powerful, Riaz dear, said a woman with short brown hair and violet eyes. She wore a beautiful dress that showed a well more of her cleavage that easily surpasses Riaz and Aquino. Yes. But how? I never trained him to be this powerful, she said, making the people present raise an eyebrow. Maybe he had a strong reason to be stronger, Grafia said, making Riaz cringe. She knew her lie was out. Grafia was watching the fight with great interest. Issei had shown her that he could bring back her younger sister from the shell she had created around herself. His power and personality were proof enough. She smiled brightly, something Sergiches noted. This was unusually for his wife when in public. Raphaeus spotted him staring and mouthed later, making Sergiches nod. Arena. Issei and Reuvel were trading pushes and kicks again. Roval knew because Issei is a dragon he is immune to fire, so he needs to outlast him and stamina. Partner, I suggest you go into the offensive and try take him out. He is trying to make you tired because he knows using his fire is useless. Beckwith, you are a dragon, and the field is absorbing his powers. Ddraig said mentally, making Issei nod. Issei threw a punch at Roval, who easily dodged it. He returned the punch, but to his surprise Issei caught his fist and quickly gave a punch right to his face, making him fall in the center of the stadium. Issei quickly raised his left hand and aimed at Roval, who was trying to stand up. He quickly changed. I am he who slays and captures gods. I am the one who knows the end and the founder of Genesis. Return thyself to the cycle of providence. The 5 elements to elements. And sever the links woven between images and truth. Now all of creation shall perish here. At the distant ends of the void, extinction ray. While chanting, a black and orange magic circle started to form from his hand. The magic circle started to expand, and out of it came a white beam shot out that headed straight to Roval, who just got up. He was blinded by a white light. His attack was so strong it penetrated through the arena wall. Observatory room, an extinction ray, Sergius said in shock. What is that, brother? Asked Rias. She was in awe but also fear. She knew well that Issei is way stronger than her. It is a very powerful black magic that even could harm gods. It shoots a beam of very concentrated destructive magic that makes everything what it touches to atoms. Informed Sergius, making the people present shocked. Is that not dangerous? What if Roval has died? Asked Venelona Gremory. Don't worry, the extinction ray is a very dangerous spell, but Roval is still a phoenix. Informed Sergius, making the people present sign in relief. Arena. After Issei used his spell, he landed on the ground and hoped his attack was enough to beat Roval. He knew that Roval was powerful, and he was sure he would survive the attack. He deliberately aimed a bit to the side to make sight he did not accidentally kill him. He was proven right when he felt his aura rise from the crater. When the smoke was gone, Roval was standing in the crater breathing heavily, and his wounds were healed by his phoenix regeneration. He gave Issei a small grin. Issei saw this and retracted his wings. Roval on the other unfolded his wings, but to everyone's surprise that his normally orange-colored wings changed to azure blue. His eyes shine blue as well, and the temperature around has increased immensely. Issei was in awe of the raw power and couldn't wait to fight it. You have my thanks, Issei Hidu. I was planning to save this form for when I challenge Ameo, but it has appeared that you are powerful enough to make me use it. I will not hold back anymore. You will face the Azure Phoenix. He yelled the last part, and his power kept rising. Issei grinned at this with battle-hungry expression. He dashed towards Roval, and the latter did the same. When they exchanged punches and kicks, I noticed that he was faster than his normal self. Eventually, Roval broke through Issei's defenses and delivered a right hook that forced Issei to the ground with an explosion. Roval was not finished yet and launched a giant blue fireball at Issei, who was trying to get up. Partner, watch out, Greg warned, and Issei was met with blinding blue light. Quickly thinking, he summoned the boosted gear and muttered balance breaker. The fireball hit, and the large explosion was soon heard afterwards. Observatory room. It has appeared that your pawn had lost Rias. Layla Phoenix said. No, this can't be happening, Rias said with a face full of despair. As expected of my big brother, that low-class brat didn't stand a chance, said Azure Phoenix pridefully. His peerage except Ravel were agreeing with him. Don't celebrate too really, Riser, Sergius said with a smirk. What do you mean, Lucifer-sama? The battle is decided. My brother is victorious, Riser said, making all people look at Sergius, who was smiling. I don't think so, he said, and pointed back at screen. Everybody looked hand to their confusion. Only smoke was seen, but then they heard something that shocked them greatly. Irina. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. Yuval, who was still flying in the air, was suddenly pushed back by a wave of pure power. When the smoke was cleared, there was Issei standing in a large crater. He wore the famous Red Dragon Emperor armor, and it radiated pure power. Observatory room. The forbidden infernal form, Sergius said in awe. Graphia, who was watching, was smiling widely and had no doubt that Issei could bring back her sister from a shell created around herself. Everybody present was shocked to see the low-class devil in the famous armor. When did he achieve that? Said Riaz out loud, making the adult look at her weirdly. What do you mean, Riaz? Venlana asked, making Riaz gulp. But before she answered, Sergius intervened. Let's continue this argument another time. For now, let's continue watching this fight. Sergius said, making both women nod and look back at the fight. Irina, Issei and Ruvel stared at each other with the biggest battle-hungry expression they could muster. They launched at each other. Every time they connected with each other, shockwaves that made crack on the arena were seen. All the devils were in awe and in interest of the two powerful individuals' strength. After a minute, Issei started to overpower Ruvel and pushed him back. Damn, that regeneration is annoying. Hey guys, how do I deal with someone like this? He mentally asked his dragons. Gather as much power as possible and use it in your strongest attack. The Phoenix regeneration is strong, but it is useless when the user is attacked with a god-class attack or is knocked out, Ddraig said, making Issei nod in thanks. He was now blocking the attacks and was able to create a good distance between them. Are you scared, Red Dragon Emperor? Ruvel mocked, making Issei smirk. Keep dreaming, Ruvel, he said, and started to gather his power. Do it. Boost 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 transfer. Agir yelled, and Issei started to gather the power on his left hand. Dragon Blaster, Issei yelled, and the sword blasted a green plasma beam to Ruvel, who was too late to dodge and was hit straight to the face. The blast was so strong that the red of the arena was destroyed in the progress. When the smoke started to disappear, the only things were left was a couple of rubble and Ruvel's unconscious body floating in the air. Issei, who was still in his balance breaker form, took a big breath in relief and waited for the people to teleport them. Azure Phoenix has retired. Issei hied out a pawn of Riaz Gremory as the winner. Sergic's voices was heard. Both Issei and Ruvel were teleported out of the arena, or whatever was left of it. Observatory room. Everybody in the observatory room was quiet. The Phoenix family were the most shocked. How can Ruvel lose? Riser said in shock, making his parents look at him. It is simple, Riser, there are people stronger than Ruvel. Issei has proven that he is one of those people. You always thought that the Phoenix regeneration was unmatched, but that is not true. I hope you finally learned your lesson and from this day forth take your training seriously. Lady Phoenix said, making Riser nod slightly. Ravel, who was standing next to Riser, looked back at her mother. She was now very curious about this Issei guy and wanted to learn more. I think we should go. Come, Ravel and Ravel, we are going home, Lord Phoenix stated, making both children nod and walk to their parents and were teleported away. Right after they teleported away, the door opened and revealed Riaz, Peerage, and Sona and Tsubaki. Everybody looked at Riaz with a happy smile. After a minute, the doors opened and a guard came in with Issei, whose clothes were torn. The younger devils blushed at his good physique. Ah, Issei-kun, that was a spectacular fight we just witnessed, Sergius said, making Issei nod and bow before the Devil King. Issei knew well that he couldn't defeat him unless going Juggernaut Drive. Their words are to kind Lucifer-sama, Issei said with respect but also emotionless tone, making the adults raise an eyebrow. The only one that didn't was Grafia, and she can understand his distant attitude towards the Gremory family. Very well, a deal is a deal, and Riaz Gremory is free to marry whoever she pleases, Sergius said, and Riaz went to hug him, but to everyone's surprise except Grafia again, that Issei held his arm out in a way that said personal space. That is good to hear. I am going home, good night, he said, and turned around and walked away. Before he left the room, he looked at Grafia and gave her a smirk. She returned it with a smile, and then he left, leaving the other people present uneasy at his coldness. What a shame, I wanted to talk with him and know him a little more, said Venelana Gremory, while Lord Gremory nodded in agreement. Yes, truly a shame, said Lord Gremory. Master, Lord and Lady Gremory, I need to inform you three about something important, Grafia said, making the adults nod, and Sergius turned towards the younger devils and said, all of you can go home now, he said, and all younger devils nodded and went their separate ways. 5 minutes later, Gremory Mansion. Currently in the dining room of the Gremory mansion were only Sursages, Lord and Lady Gremory and Graphia. She requested this meeting to inform the older devils of Ria's actions. So what is what you want to talk about, dear? Sursages said, and was rewarded with an ear pull from his wife, making the other two devils laugh at the Devil's King misery. After the ear pull, Sursages rubbed his sore cheek and Graphia gave a serious face, making all the devils present shiver for a second. What I am about to tell you is very important. Issei Haidu, pawn of Rios Gremory, was originally planning not to attend this wedding and was letting Rios' marriage riser, Graphia said, and this made both male devils shocked and soon angry. Venelana was slightly angry, but she noticed the distant attitude between Rios and Issei. Both male devils were leaking their auras, making the building shake, but that was soon stopped by the cold aura of Graphia, whose eyes were shining a deep color silver that was last seen in the Civil War. Sursages and Lord Gremory shivered at the strongest queen cold stare. And why would Ria's own servant don't want to help her, especially when she needed it the most? Said Sursages in a calmer voice, not wanted to make his wife more angry. It is simple. The way Ria's recruited is the reason for their not so stable master and servant relationship. Gracia said, making all the adult raise an eyebrow. What do you mean, Graphia? Ria's told all of us that she founded the Red Dragon Emperor in the same school she was attending and asked him to join her peerage, and he accepted it, said Benelana. Lord Gremory took a sip of wine in the progress. That was a lie. She let Issei die by the hands of the fallen angel that was in her territory, and knew about her plans to kill Issei. She let that happen and gave Issei a summing circle before the date started, and when he died, she resurrected him into a loyal piece, Graphia said, making all adults shock. Lord Gremory spitted out the wine he just drank. Sursages and Venelana were in the same boat. What? That we the only thing Sursages could mutter out. You heard me right, master, she stated in her usual stoic voice, making it crystal clear that this is not a joke. The older devils present were in a state in shock, but luckily Venelana was the first to recover. Why would Rias do that to a human? Venelana asked. I would assume that she got desperate with the whole riser situation and didn't want to risk a vizier refusing her offer to become a devil. Graphia assumed, making the other devils here nod in understanding. But why did Issei crash the wedding party? Lord Gremory asked, making Graphia sigh. I made a deal with Issei. If he crashed the wedding party and helped Rias with getting out of her engagement with Riser, and that he helps bring back Esdeath from her current shell, I will help him become high-ranking devil, Graphia said, making all devils present shock. They all knew Esdeath very well, especially Venelana, who was Esdeath's adoptive mother and mentor after the Great War. When the Great War ended, the parents of Euclid, Graphia and Esdeath, who was 6 years old at the time, died in the battle, leaving the Lucifuge children alone. Euclid took the role as head of the Lucifuge clan, while both Graphia and Esdeath went to the Gremory clan and stayed there. In that time, Graphia fell in love with Sursages, and Esdeath was raised by both Venelana and Lord Gremory. Both considered Graphia and Esdeath as their daughter before Rias. When the Civil War came, Graphia and Esdeath were given a choice to join the older anti-Satan faction. Graphia joined the anti-Satan faction because of her love for Sursages. Esdeath joined the old Satan faction because of her pride as a Lucifuge. She joined her brother and was one of the generals in the armies of the old Satan faction and was given the title, Queen of Eyes. Then the battle between Euclid and Esdeath against Sursages and Graphia came, and the accidental death of Euclid that made Esdeath in a broken state. Are you insane, Graphia, sending that boy to her? Sursages said, but that was a huge mistake. Graphia's eyes shined a beautiful but dangerous silver that promised true hell. Sursages Gremory, do not tempt me, or else I will send you astray to the realm of the dead, she threatened, and the super devil nodded and kept quiet. Are you sure that sending Issei towards Esdeath is a wise decision? Well, Issei is strong. Esdeath is on another level, Venelin said, worried. I am 100% positive that he will bring her back. Well, he doesn't show Issei as a kind person who was betrayed by the people he loved. But I know he had the strength and the courage to bring back Esdeath from her shell, Graphia said with a soft smile, making the 3 other devils nod. Very well then. Graphia, I want you to collect a say hi to tomorrow for me. I want to speak with him and apologize for my sister's actions, Sergius said with professional tone, making his queen nod. Venelana spoke right after Sergius. I will be there well to personally apologize for my daughter's actions and hope that there is no bad blood between us, Venelana said, making Sergius and Grafia nod. They continued their little chat and soon went to bed. Meanwhile, Issei home. Issei teleported home a ride in his room. He noticed that it is midnight, and he has school tomorrow. He quickly took a shower and went to bed, but he could not sleep because he sensed someone coming. He recognized this aura and gritted his teeth. Moments later, red magic circle formed and Rias Gremory came out of it. She was surprised to see Issei awake and assumed that he was sleeping. What are you going here, Rias? He said with a bored voice. I came here to thank you for crashing the wedding, she said, making a sigh in boredom. And sleeping with me is your way to thank me? He said, making Rias blush, and nodded, but he wasn't buying it. Yeah. I'd rather sleep alone. No, have a good night, Rias, and don't come in my house again, he said, and waved at her in a bored tone. I'm your master, she said, but that was proven to be a big mistake. Issei's eyes flashed dragonic. This made Rias flinch. Issei started yelling. Rias Gremory, get the fuck out of my house or else you face something more dangerous than my fight with rival. Issei yelled while still sitting because he was lazy and tired from the fight. His yell made Rias flinch and nodded and teleported away. Right after, the door opened, revealing Chelsea in her nightgown, and her eyes showed that she just woke up. What is with all that noise? Chelsea complained, and when her eyes opened fully, she saw Issei sitting on his bed with a tired expression. That red-haired lobster came by and she wanted to reward me by sleeping with me, so I told her to fuck up and leave me alone, he said casual, making Chelsea nod. They started to have a chat about the fight, and Issei even let her see the fight by using the memories from Ddraig. After they watched the fight, Chelsea headed back to her bed and went back to sleep, and Issei did the same. The sun rised and shined through the window of a sleeping Issei Heidu, who was suddenly woken up by his new alarm. He took a shower and went downstairs. He saw Chelsea eating some cereal and browsing through her phone. Issei grabbed a bowl and filled it with cereal and milk and started eating. He and Chelsea made some small chat, and after their breakfast, they both headed to school. They gathered the attention of the whole school, but that is not surprising for them. They went to class and did their usual thing. Issei sleeping in class and Chelsea talking with Murayama and Cadiz. When school finally came to an end, Chelsea went to the kendo club with Murayama and Cadiz. Issei went to the clubroom to do his usual devil duties. He didn't bother knocking and opened the door, but to his surprise someone else was there as well. The Queen of Annihilation, Grafia Lucifuge, was standing next to Rias, who was sitting on her desk with her arms crossed. The only people now present was Rias and Grafia. Issei assumed the rest did their duties. He looked at Grafia and gave a small smile that she returned. Hello, Grafia-sama, why are you here? He asked in a professional tone, making Grafia smile a bit more, but Rias grew a thick mark. Issei never showed any type of respect towards her, and that bugged her. Hello, Issei-san, I came here for you. Sergius-sama wants to speak with you, she said, making both Issei and Rias shocked. Why wants my brother have an audience with my adorable Grafia? Rias asked. That made Issei grit his teeth in annoyance. He hated the way Rias make it sound like he is some type of trophy. He wanted to rip her apart so badly, but he knew better than to be reckless. I cannot tell you, Rias-sama. My orders are simple: collect Issei, high to after his classes has ended, Grafia said, making Rias more mad, but she decided to ask Issei afterwards. Rias turned to Issei and gave a proud smile. Issei, it is a great honor to meet my brother. Go see him and make me proud, she said, but Issei ignored it. A moment, I am gonna text my sister I will be coming later home, he said, and quickly took out his phone and texted Chelsea, saying that he has somewhere to be and he would be late home. Gracia waited patiently, and when Issei was done, Gracia walked towards him and teleported them to Sergic's office. Underward, Issei and Gracia arrived inside in beautiful decorated room. Issei was in awe of its beauty, but was quickly reminded by Grafia that we should not let Sergius keep waiting. They walked in the giant halls and passed many portraits of famous devils. Devils like Lucifer, Leviathan, Beelzebub, Asmodeus, and Zikrambael, and many more. After they passes like a 1 billion portraits, they finally made it to Sir Ddraig's office. Before Graphia knocked on the door, she turned around and started to fix Issei's shirt. Issei, I know you don't like Rias and her peerage, but I want you to understand before we enter that Sir Ddraig's and Ria's parents were devastated and very disappointed in Ria's actions and will punish her accordingly. Also understand that Sir Ddraig's and Ria's parents don't want you to hate them or have any bad blood between you and them. So don't judge them for Ria's actions and give them a chance. Graphia said, but this time it was with a soft voice making Issei nod. Graphia smiled and turned around and knocked on the door inside Sir Ddraig's office. Sir Ddraig's Lucifer, formerly Gremry, is currently battle against his greatest enemy. Paperwork. He wondered if becoming Devil King was worth it because his paperwork is literally a never-ending void. He was sure to make pay for giving him her paperwork as well so she can shout another episode of her show. He was brought out of his musing when he heard someone knocking on the door. Putting down his pen, he answered. Come in, he said, and the doors opened revealing his beautiful wife, and the boy that saved his sister's life. He got up and walked past his desk with the towers of paperwork and gestured for a satiety of seat on the couch. He did and sat on the chair next to the couch. Hello, Issei. Hi, do. It is a pleasure to finally meet you, he said in a friendly tone. Issei smiled slightly. The honor is mine, Lucifer-sama. But why have you summoned me? He asked in a professional tone, making both older devils smile. First, please call me Sir Ceaches. I am not one for formalities, and second is that I want to personally apologize for my sister's actions, he said, and stood up and bowed, making Issei shocked. I know what she did to you and I hope you can forgive me. I will do whatever I have in my power to make it up to you, Sir Ceaches said, making and his dragon surprised at the Devil King actions. Please raise your head, you make me look like the villain. Also, I am not mad at you, but understand that I will not show any type of respect towards your sister and her peerage, Issei said, making Sir Ceaches raise his head and smile. I understand completely. I cannot blame you, and frankly I would do the same if I was in your position, Sir Ceaches said, making Issei nod. I don't want to waste your time because I see you have a lot of paperwork that needs to be signed, so shall we discuss the rest? Issei asked, making both adults nod. Very well, Issei-kun, I want to discuss the deal you made with my wife and talk about your reincarnation in more detail. But before you do, I want to introduce someone, if you don't mind, Sir Ceaches said in a soft voice, knowing that this is a hard point for the Red Dragon Emperor. Moments later, a red magic circle appeared near them both, and soon after the light faded, a beautiful woman appeared. She had brown hair and violet eyes. She wore a pink noble dress and her breasts were enormous. If Issei did not train himself to control his perversion, he would have a massive nosebleed. But something noticed that this woman looked almost identical to Rias. Before he could think any further, the woman spoke. Hello, Issei-kun, I am Venelana Gremry, wife of the head of the Gremry family, and the mother of Rias Gremry, she said, making Issei nod. It is an honor to meet you, Venelana-sama, he said while he stood up and did a bow. But what the adults noticed that his voice has no emotion. The pleasure is all mine, and please, sir, back down, she said, and complied, and he sat back down. Issei-kun, could you please tell me more about your reincarnation, please? Sir Ceaches asked, making Issei nod. Issei proceeded to tell them about his reincarnation in more detail. The other people in the room were horrified. Then Ilana had a face of disappointment and great anger. She knew Rias was spoiled by her husband and first child, but to let someone die for to play the hero, that is crossing the line. She gave Sir Ceaches a sharp glare that made the Devil King sweat. There are not many things that Sir Ceaches is afraid of, but the fury of his wife and his mother is his greatest fear. By sincere apologies, Mr. Heidu, I never imagined that my daughter would do something horrible like that. Understand this, it is true that we are devils, but that doesn't mean that all of us are really evil. There are devils who are truly evil, but not all of them. Please forgive me for my daughter's actions, Venelana said, and stood up and did a bow. Issei was again taken by surprise that she would throw away her pride for him. You are not to blame, Lady Gremry, But please understand that I want to keep my distance between your daughter and I myself. Issei said, making the older devil smile a bit. I understand completely. Shall we talk about the deal you made with Vritra? She asked, and all people present nodded. Very well, Issei, I need you to understand that the deal you made is an important one for Vritra and myself. Why? The woman you are about to encounter is like a daughter for me. Way before Rias was born and the Civil War started, the Lucifuge family lost their lord and lady in the Great War, leaving Euclid, Vritra, and Esdeath all alone. When we heard about that, myself and my husband offered the Lucifuge family to live with us. Vritra accepted, but Euclid declined. Because Esdeath was still young, she followed her sister and lived with us. Years has passed when the Lucifuge sisters started to live with us. Vritra started to have feeling for Sergius while I raised Esdeath personally. I trained her, taught her how to fight, hunt, and survive. Over the years she became immensely powerful, and I deduced that her talent for ice magic is superior than Vritra. On the Civil War came Euclid returned, and he offered Vritra and Esdeath to fight with him for the old Satan faction. Vritra declined for her love for Sergius, but Esdeath accepted it. She did it because of her pride as a Lucifuge. Then the Civil War came and the fight between Sergius and Vritra versus Euclid and Issei. You already know the answer to that story? Then Ilana said, making Issei's eyes widen. This Issei girl is a better ice magic user than Vritra. That means she is immensely powerful. I see then, do you have any tips on how I can beat her? Issei asked, making Ilana think. You are a fire dragon and you have the boosted gear, meaning you can use your fire to counter Esdeath ice. But she has several ice spells that can kill millions of devils with ease. Her strongest ice spell allows her to freeze time itself, giving her a great advantage in battle. And back at the Civil War, she was a general for the old Satan faction and she killed millions of devils with ease. Then Lana said, making Issei gulp. This girl sounds immensely dangerous and powerful. I see. That is a problem, Issei said while thinking. He needs more power to fight this as a girl. Sergius-sama, can I ask you a favor? Issei asked, making the Devil King raise an eyebrow in curiosity. Not many have the guts to ask a favor from the Devil King. Only if it is in my power, then ask away. Sergius said, making Issei nod. Do you think you can lift the promotion seal on my pawn pieces? Issei asked, making all devils confused at his question. May I ask why? He asked, but he had an idea what the answer will be. I understand I need more power to defeat Esdeath. I can use the promotion rule in my advantage and maybe give me the upper hand in a fight against her. Issei said, making the Devil King think. Sergius had to admit that it was a good idea and he kinda owned Issei for saving Rias from Riser. Very well, I shall talk with Ajuka about the promotion seal and see if he can lift it. Sergius said, making nod. I want to say if you defeat Esdeath, then bring her back from her shell. I promise you that I will forever be in your department, and I and my husband will help you get to high class. Then Ilana said, making nod. This is chance to gain a great favor. The same goes for me, Issei-kun. Vritra said, making Issei nod and thanks. Very well, Issei-kun, I think you should return to your home. Vritra will pick you up in a week to bring you to Esdeath, Sergius said, and he stood up and shook his Issei hand. Vritra teleported his Issei back home, leaving the three older devils alone. The moment he did, Sergius felt a cold aura to his right, and saw his mother having a very sweet smile that promised eternal pain. Sergius almost squealed like a kid when he remembered that smile. It is appeared that you spoiled Rias a little too much, Venelin said, and raised her aura, making the Devil King pray for mercy. Mother, please forgive me. If I had known that Rias went too far, I would have stopped her. Sergius pleaded, but that didn't work and was electrocuted with Venelana's power of destruction. Vritra placed a soundproof barrier around the office because she knows how much of a sadist Venelana is. For Sergius, the following hours were the definition of hell. Being electrocuted, spanked with magic-enhanced hand, and gaining a lot of frostbites from Vritra, who helped Venelana. Over the years, she gained some of Venelana's sadistic treats. With Issei arrived home and explained the situation to Chelsea, who was shocked at first, but understood what he wanted. She was happy that Issei had a chance to become high-class devil quicker. The day went on as usual, and it soon became nighttime. When Issei laid on his bed looking at some YouTube videos on his phone, he sensed a magic circle appearing on the floor. Graphia and a green-haired man came out of it. Issei recognized the man as Ajuka Beelzebub, the current Beelzebub. Issei quickly stood up from his bed and went on a knee. This action made Graphia smile at him for remembering her lessons on how to behave properly. Ajuka looked at the boy with interest. He has heard that he was the Red Dragon Emperor, but to only unlock your sacred gear in a few months and defeat an ultimate-class devil from the Phoenix nonetheless is very impressive. It is an honor to meet you, Beelzebub-sama. How can I help you? He asked the Devil King. I came here to remove the promotion seal on your pawn pieces. This should allow you to promote it yourself whenever you pleases. Ajuka explained, making Issei nod in understanding. Thank you very much, Beelzebub-sama, Issei said, making the Devil King nod. I should be thanking you. I have an idea regarding the promotion function and your sacred gear. If my assumptions are correct, it should be able to give you 4 new Balance Breakers armors. Now that this is out of the way, I bid you goodbye. Ajuka said and teleported away, leaving Issei and Gracia. Issei and Gracia talked about some things, and later Gracia left, and Issei went to bed. He was planning to use the next week to master his promotion ability because he needs it to defeat Esdeath. 1 week later. 1 week has passed and is on his way to the club room right now. He messaged Chelsea and his parents that he could be staying with his friends for the weekend. When he made it to the club room and saw Graphia standing there alone, "Hello, Graphia-sama, where is Rias?" he asked, confused why the red-haired devil was gone. I made her go home for today. Now let's go to the Lucifuge territory where Esdeath lives, Graphia said, and Issei nodded and walked towards her as she flared her powers and were teleported away. They soon arrived at a giant castle. The castle was beautiful with several flower gardens and a giant ice statue. What Issei could predict was the first Lucifuge. Issei and Graphia walked towards the doors of the castle, and when they finally made it, Graphia knocked on the door. After a minute, the door was slowly opened. The person behind the door was a beautiful woman with azure blue hair and eyes. She wore a general's outfit that hugged her body very nice. She also wore a general's hat that fitted with the outfit, and she had a tattoo right above her breast. Issei was barely taller than her, just by a centimeter. "Sister, I didn't expect you to come today," she said with surprised voice, but Issei knew that it is a fake. "Sorry for not letting you know sooner, but I have someone to introduce yourself to," Graphia said and pointed to Issei. She looked at Issei and her eyes narrowed. She felt that this boy was powerful, maybe more powerful than she was. She also watched the match between him and Rival, and knew that this boy was more powerful than any normal high-ranking devil. "Hello, I am Issei Hadu, the Red Dragon Emperor and pawn of Rios Gremory. Hello, I am Esdeath Lucifuge, heir to the Lucifuge family. Please come in," she said with a fake smile. She moved to the side to let them both in, and they did. Esdeath brought them to the dining room and served them tea. "Esdeath, I will leave you now. Take as much time as you need to get to know her and help her get out of her shell," Graphia told him before turning to Esdeath, who was looking at Esdeath and checking him out again, which made her make a sly grin at her. "Esdeath?" she said as the girl turned to her and saw her sly grin before blushing a little, knowing her sister and her mind that hadn't changed from their youth. "Yes, dear sister?" she asked as she composed herself. "Like I told Eyes, I want you to get to know him better. Maybe he will be the one that can finally bring the old lovable back from her shell," Graphia said with a slight shrug and sly smile that didn't go unnoticed by I understand. "Though I make no promises, sister," Esdeath answered her. "Don't worry, Graphia, I will help her with anything. I will do anything to return your sister back to normal," Issei told Graphia, making Esdeath widen her eyes as a small flash of life was seen in her dead blue eyes. "Thank you, Issei. If you need anything, just call me and I will come to help." With that said, Graphia teleported away, leaving the two alone. After a few moments of silence, Esdeath decided to speak. "How do you plan on doing what you promised?" she said in a low voice that was devoid of any emotions. Issei turned to her with a large grin, making her cheeks tint pink as Issei responded with the complete opposite tone of voice. "You just have to wait and see, Esdeath. As soon as he said those words, Esdeath turned around and walked back towards the living room with Issei following her. As he entered the room, he could tell that this was something that you could only imagine in your wildest dreams. Everywhere he looked, he found that it was full of all sorts of furniture, a large LCD TV with a fireplace under it. There were also a lot of pictures and statues that made him wonder if all of the high-class devils' homes were filled with these type of things. There were also many games to his surprise, like a pool table, pinball machine, and a lot of other game platforms that he saw in the human world but couldn't afford it. Esdeath sneaked a quick look at Issei's figure when he started looking around, once more unknowingly blushing softly at how hot he looked in his casual clothing. Well, he didn't look like anything special, however, he looked perfect to her. She couldn't explain it, but something was attracting her to him. It was like a magnet pulling her towards him, and it grew stronger with every look she threw at him. As Esdeath made her way toward one of the tables in the room, Issei saw that she was looking at a photo. Getting closer to her, he saw that there were 2 kids and 1 young adult in it. 2 of the kids had slick hair, one silver and one blue, while the boy had also silver hair. One looked like a younger Vritra, while the last one was a girl that had blue hair. It was obvious to him that that was Esdeath in her younger days. She looked even cuter as a little girl. Issei, though, as he looked at the younger Issei in the picture. Securite, leave now before I hurt you. I know why you are here and I don't care about it. I want to be alone. Issei suddenly told Issei in cold voice that made him flinch a little, but he gritted his teeth as he saw that Issei had a few tears running down her face as she turned around to face him. And why would you do that? I'm not here to fight you. If I wanted to fight, I would have entered Balance Breaker the moment that Vritra left. Issei told her softly, trying to calm her down, but to his disappointment, that had a very different result. I will not let my sister do as she pleases. She is more than welcome here, but I don't like being used as some tool to help anyone. I can guess what has she said to you and I don't like it. So get out of here. Esdeath started in a slow and cold voice before she yelled, releasing a large amount of aura, and her hand started to cover itself with ice, making Issei take a few steps away. Esdeath's eyes started glowing in dark blue color, as if all the fury she held inside of her was about to unleash at the young Securitate in front of her. As did he? He softly said as his eyes were filled with sadness. He saw the fury in her eyes, but he also saw that underneath all of that rage was deep sadness that showed him she was that much hurt. Issei growled slight, seeing the sadness and loneliness, and stood his ground. I know how you feel, Issei said, watching Esdeath clench her fists. What do you know about being used? You never had to fight someone that is your flesh and blood or watch them getting killed in front of your own eyes. You don't know how it was for me when people first started to try and use me to get close to my sister and her husband, to be manipulated, to be ignored later on when they finish with you, to feel lonely all the time. So I'm telling you now, get out, Security, or I will kill you. Yelled again as she shot a powerful ice attack at Issei, who barely dodged it in time. I know how it is being used a tool and watch someone close to me die right in front of me. And you are right, I won't lie to you. At first, it was because she told me to help you, but seeing you now, that has changed. I will help you all on my own. Issei shouted at her in a determined voice as he summoned his gear and started boosting his power. Sorry, Vritra Circeus, but if this is the only way to bring her back, then so be it. Issei thought as he powered up. He raised his aura to the point it was equal to. He also released his human dragon form. Without the tentacles. If this is what will take it to break through you, then so be it. Now come on. I never gave up on anything, and I'm sure as hell won't start now, Issei said as both and he charged at each other at full speed. By the mountains, by the Lucifuge mansion. Meanwhile, at the nearby cliff, Vritra stood with Sergius looking at the castle that towered the surrounding area. As they watched the Lucifuge estate, Sergius turned to his wife. He saw her looking at the estate with interest, as if waiting for something to happen. Vritra, what are we waiting for? He asked her, wanting to know why they didn't go home yet. Burning her head a little, she smiled. You will see in a moment. If what I think is going to happen, then we may soon have a new house head. Sergius was staring at her with a dumb look. He still couldn't understand what his wife meant with that. That was until he felt two strong auras shooting through the roof. Quickly turning around toward the castle, he saw and heard massive explosions going on as the attacks were coming from every which way. Grafia, seeing this, just giggled as she knew what was happening, which forced Sergius to tear his gaze from the castle towards her. What is happening down there, Grafia? Sergius asked, a little scared for the young Red Dragon Emperor, as he could tell that both Esdeath and he started to clash. After giggling for a bit more, Grafia told him that my dear is what Esdeath needed. Whoever approached her was weaker than her, and only tried to use her. After what needed to be done was done, they would leave her never to return. If can somehow manage to be on par with her or overcome her, then that would show her for the first time in her life that he is there to help her, not use her. You know that people don't think clearly when in rage. Well, that is Esdeath in a nutshell. She is filled with rage, and if could weather the storm that is Esdeath, she would slowly open up to him. Seeing the logic, Sergius just nodded his head, turning his attention to the battle that was going on in the castle with the hope that Issei would be able to do impossible again. Good luck, Issei. Hi to Lucifuge. May be rough on the edges, but she is soft inside. Treat her well, Issei. I know you can. With that thought, Grafia tapped Sergius on the shoulder and motioned him that it was time to go. With a nod, Sergius made a magic circle and left with Grafia, leaving a young emperor to fight a battle that will change his life forever. Back with Issei and Esdeath. As the battle of will and power continued, Issei felt that he was slowly breaking through the barrier that Esdeath put around her heart. He knew that sometimes the best way to know the person is to fight them, and if that was what it took to help Esdeath, he would do that for her. As he was in thought, he fell into her trap. As Esdeath charged for another attack, Issei prepared to block it or dodge it, but he didn't expect for Esdeath to miss on purpose to create a smokescreen that she used to get around him and send a powerful kick that sent Issei flying into the wall on the opposite side. Lifting up, he couldn't felt but have a little smile as he was starting to enjoy this battle. Esdeath was a very skillful opponent, and a powerful one at that. She knew how to use and exploit his weakness, and he found that thrilling to see how much she could back him up against the wall. Is this all you can do? I am disappointed, she said, and sent a rain of ice spears towards Issei, who only smirked at her. Dragon firewall, he yelled out, and moments later a wall of dragon's fire appeared before him, acting like a shield that successfully blocked Esdeath's attack. I see you have a great affinity for fire, but that will not be enough to melt my ice, she said while landing on the floor. She placed her hand on the floor, and moments later several ice pillars came out of the ground heading straight to his fire eruption, he said, and before the ice pillars could make contact with him, a beam of fire came out of the ground, disintegrating the ice pillars with ease. Esdeath was annoyed that her attacks were countered easily. She dashed towards Issei with her rapier and slashed towards Issei. He quickly reacted by summoning a sword of the shadows and blocked the incoming attack. After he blocked it, Esdeath quickly fired multiple slash attacks at who had trouble blocking them all. Unlike Esdeath, as didn't have proper training on how to use a sword, Esdeath quickly breathed some fire, forcing Esdeath to jump backwards. Esdeath quickly said dragon shot, and he fired a ball of dragon energy towards Esdeath, who didn't try dodge. To Esdeath's surprise, she slashed the dragon shot in half with her rapier, gathering shock from Esdeath and his dragons. Damn, she powerful, he said in mind, and his dragons agreed. Very powerful. I recommend using the balance breaker and trying to overpower her. Her magic reserves are enormous, and she could probably outlast you in a fight similar with that Azure Phoenix, Ddraig said, making nod. What? Are you scared? She mocked, making smirk. Not at all, do it, Ddraig yelled, and the boosted gear screamed. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. Moments later, aura exploded, and soon afterwards stood Issei in the famous Red Dragon Emperor's armor. So this is the scale mail of the Red Dragon Emperor, very impressive, Issei said, and raised her aura as well. Her aura started to freeze the area around her. The grass started to turn white, the flowers started to die, and it started to snow. Issei was very impressed, and he could immediately tell that Esdeath's aura is levels above Zruval even in his Azure Phoenix form. Issei and Esdeath started to charge at each other. Esdeath was on the offensive while Issei had to defend and wait for his boosted gear to generate more power. Esdeath knew this, and was trying to take down Issei with her powerful ice attacks, but his fire was able to counter it, making Esdeath slightly nervous. She knew about the boosted gear and that allows the user to generate enough it could kill gods, but it took a very long time. She made some distance and unfolded her devil wings and flew in the air. She snapped her fingers, and moments later, Enemies' ball of ice started to fall towards Issei direction. Issei quickly gathered his fire and yelled, "Flame Dragon's secret arts! Fusion flare!" Issei's fire started to gather itself to the point it became a giant fireball that was equal in size as Issei's ice attack. They both collided, and the giant exploring soon followed, pushing Issei and Esdeath back by several meters. Issei started to stand up and recover from the explosion. When he did, he noticed that Esdeath was also getting up. When they made eye contact, Esdeath's eyes were not the emotionless blue like before, but no, they were replaced with the shining blue. Before Issei and Esdeath dashed towards each other, he quickly said, "Promotion Knight," and both fighters dashed towards each other. Luckily, with the help of the promotion seal, his speed had been increased a good bit, and he was able to get close to Esdeath, who was surprised at the sudden show of speed, and before she could defend herself, he said, "Promotion Rook." He punched Esdeath in the gut, and punched her backwards with extreme force. Quickly he unfolded his dragon wings and flew in the air, and he yelled, "Promotion Bishop," and he gathered his draconic power. "Now Ddraig. Boost, 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 boost. Dragon Blaster," he yelled, and he sent a beam of green dragonic energy at Esdeath directions, and luckily for her she putted a barrier, but it was not enough to block the attack completely, and she took a lot to damage. Issei landed on the ground, but the moment he did, he was pushed back by an enormous amount of aura. When he was able to stand up, he saw Esdeath with her clothes torn, showing him some of her skin, but with an enormous amount of aura that puts rival Azure Phoenix's form to shame. "I felt like this like forever. Red Dragon Emperor, no say hi do was it? I give you my thanks. Not many have pushed me so much, and for that I will not hold back anymore," she said with a voice full with excitement. But before Issei could react, Ddraig spoke. "Ardner, her aura is around top tier ultimate, maybe even Satan class. I recommend using the fusion balance breaker because one wrong move and you are finished," Ddraig warned, making gulp. "Very well then. Crimson Prison Balance Breaker," he yelled, and a dark aura exploded. "Crimson Prison Balance Breaker." The combined voice of Ddraig and Vritra yelled out, and moments later there was Issei standing in a new armor. It had the design of the Red Dragon Emperor's Balance Breaker, but the colors are different. The previous red color changed to black and the green gems changed to a dark red. "Partner, you are already used a lot of your stamina before, so I recommend using the Queen promotion and give it your all," Vritra wanted, making a nod. "Promotion Queen," he yelled, and he felt his power rising. Esdeath looked excited, and she had a small blush of the sheer amount of aura Esdeath was giving of. Esdeath charged at Esdeath, and the latter doing the same. Issei immediately got the upper hand and was able to push Esdeath back. Issei tried to get close, but Esdeath didn't allow him. She fired ice attacks to make Issei back off, but he was quick to dodge the attack, and headed to close the gap between them. He boosted his powers at the meantime. She tried to protect herself with a powerful barrier, but Esdeath quickly punched on it. "Penetrate." And the barrier shattered, forcing Esdeath to jump back. Seeing no other choice, she gathered the last of her ice magic and yelled, "Bahanama," she said, and before Issei knew it, time itself has been frozen. Because Issei was only several meters from her, she brought her rapier and stabbed Issei in the sides. Because time was frozen, the sturdiness of the armor was gone, allowing Esdeath to penetrate the armor with ease. "It was fun until it lasted," she said. Moments later, time began to move, but the moment it did, the boosted gear yelled, "Explosion." And the now moving Issei touched Esdeath straight in the gut, pushing her back at the nearby mountain and making a crater. Issei, who was to damage, fell on his knees and the armor disappeared. Luckily, because he got some boost in his body, was strong enough to take the damage after the time freeze. He got up and created a sword out of the shadows and headed towards Esdeath's location. He saw her under a pile of rocks. She started to move. She tried to stand up, but she was too exhausted after using her time freezing spell. She looked up and saw the face of Issei smiling at her with blood coming out of his mouth. He pointed his sword at her and said, "Do you yield?" As did Lucifuge, a prideful woman, and one for the most feared female devils in the whole underworld, never imagined she would be defeated against a boy. She looked at the boy and saw him smiling, and she said, "I yield." Issei and his sword disappear and handed Issei his hand. She looked at him and saw that he was smiling. She gave a small smile herself and took it. Issei helped her get up, but she was too exhausted to the point she couldn't stand up. So without saying, Issei picked her bridal style, making the Ice Queen flustered at the action. She couldn't get any words out and let him do as he pleases. Issei brought her back home and placed her on the large couch. When he did, he saw her face bright red, making him smile a bit. He headed towards the kitchen and made some sandwiches and cups of water. He brought the food and drinks to Esdeath, who was still laying on the couch with some torn of clothes. He handed her the food and drinks for her to replenish her energy, and it worked. After 10 minutes she got up and sat on the couch. Issei was sitting on the small sofa next to the couch. "Issei, why did you came here?" "I know it was for something big, so spill it," she said in a voice that left no room for argument. Nodding, Issei answered her honestly. "Like I told you before the fight, I know how it is to be devastated and to be used as a tool. I was once a normal human boy that was only, and I might regret saying this, interested in porn and perverted stuff." That made Esdeath started laughing for the first time in a century, as she found it funny to be only interested in porn and perverted stuff. She was laughing so hard that she literally fell from the couch and started to roll on the floor laughing. It took a few minutes for her to get her breath back before sitting up, but she was almost sent into another laughing rage as she saw Issei's face that was red from embarrassment and had a pout which she found extremely cute. Sorry, I didn't laugh that way in almost decade. Sorry eyes," she said, still collecting her breath as she was now red from the laughing, with a beautiful smile that made his eyes blush even worse. "It's fine, as long as you have that smile you can laugh at me all you want," he told her sincerely, as it was her turn to become red from his words. "As I was saying, I was only interested in porn and perverted stuff before I was asked out on a date that would change my life. As that date was ending, the girl that asked me out turned out to be a fallen angel that was on a mission to murder me. After she did just that, Rias Gremory swooped up and revived me, turning me into her pawn. Though later, when we raided the church, I found out from the fallen angel that killed me no less that Rias knew her plans of it, and she let me die so that she can use me to get free from a marriage agreement with Azure Phoenix. Thought after me raiding the engagement party, I was able to beat not Riza, but his older brother Ruvel, and free Rias. But at first, I was not planning to participate in the game, and I didn't do it. But the Grafia found it out and questioned me. I told her my story, and when Grafia told me about you, I knew that there was something about you that felt similar to me. We lost something important to us, you with your brother, while I lost my freedom and humanity. So I made a deal with Grafia. I will help you break free from your depression and your sadness. In exchange, she will help me go up the ranks, and I would finally be free from Rias," said, getting Esdeath to look down, thinking he was just like everyone else. "Oh, when I saw you and how you behaved when Grafia left, I could tell that what you did in her presence was a very good mask, and that you were also hurting even more inside. That's what gave me resolve to help you no matter the cost. Can't have that beautiful face not having a real smile on," Issei told her honestly with a sad face as he lowered his head, looking at the floor, as he knew that there was nothing wrong in telling her, though he was surprised at what she did. Esdeath, hearing his story, had a sad look on her face that was replaced with the look of pure rage as she heard what Rias did, though how he finished it made her have a bright red blush that he thankfully didn't see. She could understand what it was to lose something important. Though Issei didn't lose his family, he lost something also very important. He lost a big part of himself. He lost his freedom and his humanity that, from the looks of it, he really held in high regard. So to make him feel a little better, she did what she thought would cheer him up. She stood up to walk towards him while Issei was looking down. He didn't see her getting closer to him and eventually hugging him from behind, making him go red as his armor, and her warm breath that he felt only made him even more redder. "Issei, I can somewhat understand how you feel. You cherish your humanity and what Rias did. If it happened to me, I would have killed her 10 times over by now. It looks like you have an incredible will to suppress your hatred and work up the ladder, she softly told him as he slowly turned around to look at her eyes that finally showed some emotions. Issei, was all that Issei could say as he was mesmerized by her beauty, and being this near her was like he was being hypnotized by her beauty. Now then, Issei, I think it's time you heard my story. It's only fair since you told me yours, told him as she released the hug that made want to protest, but he kept that inside of him. As returned back on the couch, she took a moment collecting herself before looking directly into eyes. Issei could practically feel that what she was about to tell him was something that was a very, very sour subject, and that it was still something that was hurting her a lot. As did, if you are not ready to tell me, I can wait. Like I said, I have all the time of this world and I will be here with you until you are ready. Okay. He told her gently. It was his turn to hug her, getting her eyes to go wide at his words. As Ddraig slowly turned around in his hug and hugged him back while putting her head on his shoulder, as she started to sob uncontrollably. As it turned out, her emotions were hitting an all-time high. She thought she had cried all the tears she had on that day when Euclid died. She was now proven wrong. After more than 10 minutes, Esdeath finally stopped crying as she weakly lifted her face from his shoulder to see him looking at her with a smile that made her heart skip a bit, and her face to adore a beautiful red color, as she felt his hand run down her hair. She would admit later that seeing him hold her like this made her secure and made her want to be held by him even more. She could tell by his firm and yet soft hold on her that he was holding her like she was his treasure. Just how a dragon would protect what was his with all his might. She smiled softly, as she remembered that the boy who was holding her was also a dragon, as he is the Red Dragon Emperor. As she slowly, almost reluctantly, removed herself from his embrace, she could see that he was almost protesting that he couldn't hold her, which made her smile softly at him with a blush on her face. Thank you, eyes, I needed that, Esdeath answered before she yawned as she felt herself getting extremely tired. The fight and her emotions were enough to make her needing sleep. Smiling, Issei just nodded before he chuckled at her yawn, which her made go full red this time as she playfully hit him in the arm as he started laughing. Jerk, she mumbled to herself with a pout, but when she heard him laughing even more, she was red like his balance breaker. Sorry, your face was just too cute to resist. Anyway, you go to bed. I assume that you have a free room here for me to use while staying here with you, Issei asked Kira as she just nodded with steam coming out her ears as she heard what he said about her. Yeah. There are plenty of rooms here for you to use. I will show you where is mine and you can take the one next to me, so if you need anything you will know where I am, she answered as she collected herself. Sweet. The one question. Where are all the servants? I figured there would be a lot of them here, he asked. When Vritra comes, they are getting their day off since they all agreed that they would leave both of us to have a day for ourselves. I'm actually grateful for that. They kept me sane all this time, Esdeath said as she started to make her way towards her room while showing Issei where were other stuff in the castle. As the day was slowly coming to a close and sun was slowly setting and was replaced by a moon, Issei decided to take a walk to recap what happened today while Esdeath was asleep resting from the eventful day that she had. He was rewinding the events of this day. However, he was brought out of his thoughts the moment he saw a magic circle that had a Gremry symbol a little away from him appear. Stepping out of it was none other than Vritra, that was dressed in a black shirt with silver straps and light blue jeans with black sneakers. Seeing him, Vritra showed him a smile that was similar to Esdeath's, but unlike hers, it showed more of a family smile like a big sister's one. As they both neared each other, Vritra brought Issei into a tight hug that made him go red for what seemed like the 100th time today. I'm glad that you are alright. As death can be ballistic when dealing with anyone that isn't me, she told him in a soft tone as she released him and looked at him to see if there are any injuries on him. She did saw that his shirt was mostly torn off and that he had a stab wound on his side, but it looked like it was already healing. Yeah, I saw. Though you don't need to worry. I'm alright as Aziz did, she is sleeping right now. Looks like the fight and her emotions exhausted her way too much, Issei answered as he saw Vritra widen her eyes a little. As she showed emotions, she asked in disbelief. Nodding, Issei explained to her what happened after the fight. Vritra was at first shocked that Issei did what she did, but later smiled widely at seeing that her baby sister was finally recovering. She was so calling Benelana after this, and she will be delighted to hear that her adoptive daughter is slowly coming back. Issei, let's go back to the castle. I talked with Sergiches and he told me it's okay for me to take a few days off to see how both of you are doing, she said, and he nodded. Sure, I was finished with my walk anyway, Issei replied with a small smile. But that both of them started walking back towards the castle that was Graphia's and Esdeath's home, Issei asked about the things that transpired back home during his time here with the blue-haired heiress. Issei was laughing at what he was told would be an understatement. He along with Graphia were laughing while Ddraig and Vritra were both roaring in laughter in his head at what they heard from the strongest queen. Apparently, Rias was demanding to know where Issei was, while the rest of Orc was also in the agreement with her. Though while Rias was fuming at Graphia for not wanting to answer her about his whereabouts, apparently, Rias and the Orc discovered that Chelsea is not sister and just an acquaintance. Rias offered her to join her peerage because she found it out she had a sacred gear, but she refused the offer. Then later when Rias was demanding to know where Issei is more, Chelsea, who was requested to be at the clubhouse, had enough and used her sacred gear and knocked her out in muttering something about peace and quiet. The peerage members wanted to help her. Lucky Graphia interfered by releasing 5% of her aura, making the peerage stop their silly attempts to help their king. After 5 minutes, Rias woke up and she was furious. But before she could attack, Graphia froze her completely to let her cool down, making a safe fake sister laugh at Rias' misfortune. 5 minutes later, after coming inside the living room, Graphia told him to find a sit and relax while she makes some tea for the three of them, as she felt that Esdeath was waking up from her sleep. Graphia knew that Esdeath was never a sleepy person, at that she would sleep for an hour or two max if she was tired. As soon as Graphia returned and poured 3 cups of tea, Edith entered the room wearing a simple purple top with grey shorts and slippers, making Edith blush madly at seeing her. Seeing his face become bright red made Edith show off her real smile that made him have steam come out of his ears seeing it. Her smile is so amazing, Issei thought as he followed her form. As Graphia watched them, she couldn't help but not smile, seeing the silent interaction between the two youths. She remembered that it was almost the same thing with her. She and Sergiches were always fighting when she and Esdeath moved in the Gremory mansion. While battling him, she slowly started to love Sergiches, the same she now saw in both Issei and Issei. Only difference is their progress was far quicker than what she had. Well, that is something I didn't see in a long time, Issei. You are smiling again. It's nice compared to your fake one, Graphia told her, as she had taken a sit opposite of Issei. Thank you, sis. It's nice to be free from those thoughts, Esdeath answered as she sat herself beside Issei, making both of them blush. Not that both of them minded that they were close. In contrary, it made Issei relax while it made Esdeath feel secured. Nodding with a smile, Graphia suddenly turned serious, making both of them gulp with a little fear. They both knew that Graphia won't do anything to them. It was still unnerving to see her serious side. Now I assume that Issei told you about his story, correct, Issei? Graphia asked her little sister. Nodding, Issei answered her. Yeah, he did, and I can understand why you sent him to help me. You both have my gratitude. Issei just shook his head at that. You don't need to thank me. I would do anything to help someone in trouble, no matter how much it took. Esdeath turned to look at him, and again smiled, making him mentally swear to protect that beautiful smile that she had and to keep her safe from anything that would endanger it. Nodding, Graphia turned to and told him why she has come here. Ace, there's a reason why I came here. I know that most likely tried to tell you why she was in that state, but couldn't, so I will tell you. Keep in mind, you two, what I tell you doesn't leave this room. Understood? Gracia questioned. Steadying himself, Issei nodded at her, feeling ready to hear what happened to Issei. As Issei steadied herself to hear it from Gracia's point. It all started after the Great War, as 3 sides were left decimated without their leaders. The descendants of the original Mayas wanted to continue what their fathers started, seeing that it would lead to the complete annihilation of the Devil's race. At first, I was like you, Esdeath, though that we are the strongest, but as the anti-Satan faction formed, I started to realize that even if we marched with our full force and somehow managed to win, it would be the worst kind of Pyrrhic victory. with a completely destroyed race and with nothing to gain out of it. The other factions would pick off the scraps that were left, and there would be nothing of us left. Completely being forgotten in history. Though my opinion on joining the old Satan faction changed when I started to fall in love with Sergiches and I joined the anti-Satan faction. Vritra stopped a little to let it settle into their minds, and after a minute or so, as teeth and Issei's eyes went wide as they understood it crystal clear, if they went to war it would be the end of devil kind. Clear and simple. Now after I understood it, I tried to make you both as did this and you could understand it also. But you were too blinded by the words of those bastards to hear it clearly. So on that fateful day when the final battle was taking place, Sergiches did what he did, though he didn't want to kill him. He was aiming at you to make you unconscious so he could fight Euclid without you jumping in between. But somehow he underestimated Euclid and unleashed more power than he should have, killing him. Vritra told her sadly as both her and Issei saw that Issei had tears in her eyes. Issei quickly pulled her into a hug to let her know that he was now here for her. After a few moments, Issei collected herself enough for Vritra to continue. Issei nodded a little too. Vritra made her continue the story. After that event, as you remember, you were in prison as a prisoner of war, but on both of Sergiches and mine intervention, you were released. Though after that, he tried to apologize several times, but you would just attack him, which would force him to leave, not wanting to hurt you even more than he already did. Oh, now that Issei managed to break through your defenses and make you open up a little, it looks like it all went good. Yes, it all ended up good. You don't have to worry, Vritra. I will do whatever is in my power to keep Esdeath safe and sound. Even if it kills me, Issei told them with passion as the fire was burning in his eyes that made Vritra have a big smile, while Issei bright red with steam coming from her ears at his passionate words. What is happening with me? Issei thought as she looked at Issei before quickly looking away as he turned to her. This reaction made Vritra giggle a little. That is nice to hear, Issei. Like both Sergiches, Vinalana and I told you, your path to freedom is now on the right track. If you manage to surpass your own abilities and keep doing what is thought impossible, you will be very soon on becoming a high-class devil. Vritra answered him, making his eyes go wide with a big smile on his face at the thought of being free. As did hearing that her sister was helping Issei also smiled a little as she knew that he deserved it after fighting 2 ultimate-class devils and coming out on top. She would only hope that when Issei became a high class that he wouldn't forget her and move on. Though Issei was thinking of asking Issei to become his queen when he got his pieces, since he would love to have her with him all the time, as he felt that she was the one that made him feel at peace and relaxed in her presence. She so far has been the only one out of all the people in his life to make him feel this way. As the two of them were in their thoughts, Vritra decided it was time to leave and give them some time for them, as she could see the love forming in them. Vritra would love to have his say as a brother-in-law. It would be a lot of fun teasing him in the future over this. Now it's time for me to leave. Enjoy your stay here, Issei. This is now your home also, and I don't think that Esdeath will argue with me on this one. Vritra told them, breaking their thoughts as both looked at her and nodded. Well, I will come later for you eyes, but for now take care both of you lovebirds. Vritra told them her goodbye with a sly smirk before teleporting away, leaving a steaming red duo glued to their seats. Without turning to face him as he spoke, so what do you say we both call it a night, and talk about more things in the morning? Why yeah, let's do that. Issei dumbly answered as both of them stood up and departed towards their room. With Issei. As Issei was in his bed, he started to have a little conversation with Ddraig and Vritra about what to do next. Since he was fairly sure that from this point on things are going to get even more difficult for him. So Guy, what do you think the future holds for us? Guys, that is a hard question to answer, but I suggest that you keep training and getting stronger so you can continue to protect those who you love and care for. Vritra answered him in a serious tone that made him nod. You are correct, but remember when I used the fusion balance breaker? I didn't feel any negative emotions like you warned me about before, Issei said, making Vritra think. Your desire for helping that Lucifuge girl was strong enough to push back the negative emotions of the spirit of the evil dragons. But I recommend only use that form as a last resort, because if you don't have reason to push yourself to use that form, you will get corrupted by the negative emotions of the evil dragon, Vritra said, making Issei nod. Ddraig decided to say something. Harnar, I must say you surprised me with how you handled Esdeath. I remembered that she was a monster to those that battled her, but looks like you are growing at an abnormal speed. He praised his host. Thank you, Ddraig. That means a lot coming from you, though I'm worried about what would happen next, Issei said in a worried voice. Before Vritra or Ddraig could answer, they heard a knock on the door that made Issei lift himself a little up in his king-size bed. The blanket fell down into his lap, revealing his bare chest and abs that would make any girl crazy over them. It's open, he said loudly so it could be heard from the other side. As soon as he said that, the door opened up to reveal Esdeath with her blue PJ, with her hair tied up in a ponytail, with a nervous smile on her face. Esdeath, what are you doing here? I thought that you were asleep, Issei asked as Esdeath moved closer to his bed before sitting on the edge with her back turned towards him. I was asleep, but I was awakened up by the nightmares that I had of that day, the one my sister mentioned, she answered him sadly. As he lifted himself completely forward, he turned Esdeath around to face him, which made her blush madly, seeing his naked upper body that was well built and had an 8-pack, before hugging her tight and whispering into her ear, making her blush red even more from his bare touch. It's all right, Esdeath. What I told Graphia was true. I will make sure that you are safe and sound. I will protect you with all of my might, even if it would spell the end for me, he softly whispered, making Esdeath him back even tighter than he was her. Thank you? You're the first person to do this much for me, she answered honestly as she felt him loosening his embrace of her. Is there any way I can help you? He softly asked her with a smile. Nodding, she replied in a shy voice that Issei found irresistible. Would you let me sleep with you? Just for tonight, I would feel much better than sleeping alone. Smiling brightly, Issei nodded and moved to the side, lifting his blanket to let the Lucifugos enter. As soon as Esdeath was in the bed, she quickly hugged him, feeling his well-built body and heat coming from him. He was like the best pillow she could imagine. If it helps tonight, then we can do this every night. I will do anything to help you, Issei responded truthfully, getting a soft nod from Esdeath. Issei unknowingly started to and sing my demons to help him fall asleep, since he started doing this after the recent events. However, it also helped Esdeath, since she found his voice soothing, and within a few moments, Esdeath was asleep with a smile on her face. That made smile, as well as he gently stroked her hair softly, hearing a few soft moans coming from the sleeping beauty that was next to him. With also closed his eyes, falling to sleep after his song. That's it, guys. Well, for now, we've reached the end of the latest chapter. Thanks for listening to my video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment below your favorite part. Sayonara, see you in the next video.